Two things are certain in life. How Do We Human, the podcast where we talk about all the weird and uncomfortable micro moments. We'll do an episode on death and an episode on taxes. This is that second episode. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Binning.
I'm one of your hosts, Evan Cox.
And to talk about taxes today, we have a guest, one of the co-hosts of the Big Bang Theory podcast, Kyle Amann.
Yes, that is correct. All of my expertise in preparing taxes comes from watching episodes of The Big Bang Theory. So,
uh-oh.
It translates.
You just, instead of typing in the numbers, you just type in like some show from the 80s.
Yeah, it turns out if you just write Bazinga on the top of your tax return, they have to give you a refund. I don't know if you knew that hack, but it's true. It's in the Constitution.
If you write Bazinga and flip it upside down, that's my employee identification number. So. It's like a calculator.
Well, we'll just jump right into it. Let's talk about taxes. W-2s have been sent out. I've received mine. I don't know.
I would like to start this out by saying I was told by the company I work for to expect my W-2 on January 23rd. And I was like, I'm going to do my taxes and then do the podcast. And it's not here. It's got a little message that's like, try again later. It'll be there. But I want to open up saying I love doing my taxes. Maybe an unpopular opinion. I look forward to it every year. I like having numbers that I can input that add up correctly. It's a little sparkle on the start of my year.
I do think describing doing your taxes as a little sparkle on the start of your year is an unpopular opinion.
Do you get that a lot, Kyle? People excited about this?
No, I mean, I should say my whole job exists because most people have a deep emotional, visceral dislike of touching anything to do with their own finances or their own taxes. So most of my job is a lot of my job is the mechanical, like you said, fitting the numbers in, but a surprising amount of my job is emotional management around.
I'm sure
is basically me being like an impromptu, improvisational, underqualified therapist for people who have to explain like, yes, I know it doesn't look like I made that much money this year, but you have to understand I'm going through a divorce and it's a really hard time for me. It's like, that's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
What, so, you do other people's taxes. We didn't fully hit on that in your intro. So are you, what's that title called? Is it a CPA?
No. So it could be people. Okay. If a CPA could be the person doing your taxes, chances are it is not. So most.
What does CPA stand for?
Certified Public
California
Accountant.
Pizza, a kitchen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, have you not seen the scene in The Producers where the dude is like, "This is why I'm a CPA, certified public accountant, and you are merely a PA, public accountant." It's
I have seen that scene, but I don't remember.
It's John Lovitz doing the line, which is the only reason it's real. I mean, his delivery is 90% of the appeal there.
He's reaping all the benefits.
Yes. Anyway, so CPAs are people who can do taxes because they go to school for it. But most tax professionals are not necessarily CPAs. In fact, in many parts of the country, you can do someone else's taxes with zero certification or education or qualifications whatsoever. That is not the case in California. In California and other places like New York and several others, you have to have at least some proof that you've taken classes and done professional certification to prepare tax returns. And in my case, what I am is an enrolled agent. So I took a fancy exam through the IRS itself, which came in 3 parts and had like a billion questions about various tax things. And when I'd been doing taxes already. So I should say, so first I started doing taxes here in California with as a C-Tech, a certified tax, whatever. I don't remember what C-Tech stands for. But anyway, you get your C-Tech license, which is like 100 hours of tax coursework that is not accredited. It's not like in a college campus. You can just take a course, usually through someplace like H&R Block or online or something like that. So I got my C-Tech, and I did taxes for a couple of years for H&R Block, a place your listeners are probably familiar with. And I should say now, just as an aside, the single most accurate portrayal of H&R Block I've ever seen is what's that guy's name? Is it Chris? Not Chris, not you, Chris, but is it Chris Fleming? Is that the guy's name? Yes. Chris Fleming has a song bit called Sick Jan about him going in to get his taxes done by a woman who won't stop coughing and keeps telling him, yes, we can take a home office deduction, but I know you don't have the home office, so you better be prepared for both of us to go to jail if this goes bad. And every single moment of that sketch is 100% accurate of working in an HR Block. So I would recommend everyone go watch it. I laugh myself hysterical every single time I think about it. But it's a very inside joke. Anyway, so I worked there for a couple of years, and then I learned enough about taxes that I was willing to do, and the extra work of becoming an enrolled agent. And now I'm currently on the path towards my next goal is I'm going to get a master's degree so go back to school and get a master's in tax certification.
Hell
so
yeah.
I'm climbing up the ladder, but at no point in there will I ever be technically an accountant because in the sense of
Interesting.
being a CPA, which is fine because as I used to get really weird about it when people called me an accountant, but then I realized that to most people, accountant isn't like doctor where they really, when they call you that, you better have a PhD where when they come to you, like you better have a medical degree. It's more like accountant is just the slang term we use for a person who moves the numbers around and does my tax stuff. So it's different from either a doctor or a lawyer in that sense. So people regularly call me their accountant. I don't correct them unless they call me a CPA, but technically I'm an enrolled agent.
Okay. Now I'm curious as a person who finds joy in taxes. Is that how you get started in this, or is this just a career path you kind of started at some point? And you hate doing taxes?
No, I don't. Can I ask you a question? When you were a kid, were you good at doing homework? Like, were you ever?
Me?
Yeah. Did your parents have to make you do homework, or did you just always just go home and do your homework and be like?
I'd call it like middling. I'm a procrastinator.
I see.
For whatever reason, not on my taxes. This day I get my W-2, I'm in. I don't know. I think I just enjoy it.
Well, that's fine. So I always, I was, when I was a kid, I was that annoying student who I didn't enjoy getting home. I don't want to make it sound like I was like Hermione Granger, like, please, sir, give us more math problems. You only gave us 10 this week, and last week you gave us 12. More algebra, sir. My brain is slowly collapsing. No, but when I got the homework, like I would go home completely self-directed with no external pressure and just do it. Sit down and yes, I sort of found the aspect of learning through doing homework to actually be interesting and engaging, meaning I'm one of the only people for whom homework has ever functioned as it's actually supposed to function, where you do the problems, you're like, oh, now I feel like I understand the subject matter a little bit more. So the same part of my brain that enjoyed doing homework, I think, is the part that makes me good at doing taxes, because you're sitting down with a form, you're plugging in a bunch of numbers, and at the end of it, you have this thing that sort of balances out and is complete that you can then present to Daddy IRS for validation. I mean, what? I mean, present to your clients for money.
Your old Uncle Sam. I told this story on this podcast a while ago that I just had a weird short period of time where I was like getting sick of my job. Or that was my last job. I hated that job. I hate my job. I'm sick of what I'm doing. And I was like, do I want to do people's taxes? Because as weird as it sounds, but you will, I think, agree by what you just said. There's something wildly sad. Like, so much of my work has been kind of nebulous. Like, a thing gets approved, but it's not actually done, and that leads to the next project. And having a thing where it's like, this is my task, and then it just gets done, and you can verify it, and it's like, that is off my plate now. Let's crunch some more numbers.
Yes.
I like the idea of that.
Yeah, I will. I think that's totally valid. So just without getting into it too deep, yeah, I did my own tax returns one year. I think the first year I ever did my own taxes, and I don't mean like I sat down, did them by hand. I mean, the first year I did them on TurboTax, I was like,
right.
Oh, I see how this is supposed to work. You take the forms and you plug them into the computer and it tells you whether or not you owe taxes. I was like, this isn't too bad. And then it was actually so my family we're all sort of career professionals in different fields. And so my brother, who was a financial advisor, was like, hey, I know you want to be a screenwriter, but you're not going to be making any money for many, 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 many years while you try and do that. So in the meantime, if you learn how to do people's taxes, that can be a seasonal job that you make enough money that you can do that for a couple months out of the year, and then spend the rest of the year writing screenplays. And it turned out he was lying. He didn't know he was lying. He was completely lying. You absolutely cannot make enough money doing people's taxes in a couple of months. You either basically, I ended up, I had a period of a couple of years where I was on that model where I was working like a couple months out of the year doing taxes and then writing the rest of the year and still basically broke. And then I transitioned to doing taxes as sort of a full-time career transition. And now I have much less time for writing than I would like, but at least I'm not starving.
Yeah. I mean, that's
growing up, baby.
Yeah. It sounded like the idea.
Murder your dreams.
Yeah, the idea of the seasonal work that could pay for an apartment for the rest of the year is like, wow, what a world.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was possible
I can see
at
that
some
not working
point.
out. Yeah, right.
I mean, it is true. I have a really weird schedule where I work super duper crazy hard for like 4 months out of the year. And then the rest of the year, I have a pretty cushy job where I am, mostly just answering emails and performing the occasional calculation.
Hibernating, getting stronger.
Yes, but I still have to be here all the time. It's like, I can't just not come into the office on the off season.
So Evan loves to do his taxes, and I'm sure, Kyle, you have many clients who like just hate doing their taxes, find it so stressful and so emotionally taxing.
Is this what it's like to be in the
I've
office?
Never heard that before. That's brilliant. Emotionally taxing. What an apt analogy.
We should all do our emotional taxes every year, same time of year.
Yeah. I think that for me, as someone who has not done my own taxes before, it's because of movies and television shows and like stand-up comedians or whatever, like putting out this idea that taxes are so brutally difficult, turn your brain to mush, so stressful, and then also the idea that if you don't do it, if you do it wrong, you're going to jail.
Yes.
So
that is
I think that it's more motivated by fear that I have not done my own taxes. But my fiance is like, you got to do your own taxes. So there may be time to look at the form and plug them into the turbo.
Well, you don't have to do your own taxes. You're one of your oldest, dearest friends is a tax preparer, so you have a cushy deal going on. But yes, the rest of if you were any other person, you would have to, that's like, I make 90% of the people in I make close family members pay me if they want me to do their taxes, but I have I make exceptions for like one or two close friends, And then, if we've ever been, shall we say, intimate in any fashion, then that's sort of that's not. Which I don't want to make it. That made it instantly sound more skeezy than I meant. I don't mean that. I just meant
I've got deals around town.
I just meant if we've dated.
Sure.
That's usually one of the perks of dating an accountant or a tax person. Is at the very least you don't have to worry about that. But yes.
Hey, baby, you want your taxes done for free?
That was actually one of the best pickup lines I ever heard with an ex of mine was like the way, actually the best part of the pickup line was she was hitting on me. So that was probably, she was already like 90% of the way to the finish line. Yeah. But what she actually said was, hey, just so you know, I already did my taxes this year. I'm on top of it. So we're good to go. And I was like, that is a very sexy thing to hear. Thank you.
We are good to go.
Anyways, but yes, probably the single biggest misinterpretation about taxes that I've seen in the environment is this idea that if you do them wrong, you will go to jail. And that is that is fundamentally untrue. I think it is. So just to set the record straight, you generally only go to jail if you lie on your taxes. And even then you generally only go to jail if you lie on your taxes for massive amounts of money, which you then refuse to pay even after they catch you lying on your taxes. So the best. So we can talk about bad portrayals of taxes in media all day long, but probably one of the best portrayals of taxes in media was in the show Breaking Bad. In the third or fourth season of that show, Skylar gets a job at a car dealership and her boss is embezzling money from the car dealership and underreport. And as part of that, he's not reporting income on his taxes. And he gets audited. And that I will, so just as an aside, the other thing that they tell you in media is that being audited sucks, and that is absolutely true. That is not a lie. That is any like people in movies throw themselves in front of buses when they find out they're being audited. That is fair. Being audited is a nightmare. That is fair. But it's totally random, and you can't control whether or not it happens to you. So there's no point stressing about it. Unless you've done something really wrong, in which case that does increase your chances of being audited, I suppose. But anyways, so he gets audited by the IRS, and Skylar goes and pretends to be a bimbo in front of the IRS examiner to convince them that it was not malicious. It was only a crime of ignorance and incompetence. And that's an important distinction to the IRS, right? Like that sort of illuminates the whole principle right there. It's if they thought you lied on your taxes because you were trying to hide money from the government, then you can get in a lot of trouble. And if they think you lied on your taxes because you hired someone who was pretty but not very smart to do your taxes, say Kyle Amann, enrolled agent, then they'll still make you pay back the money. But you won't go to jail. So the worst case scenario 99% of the time in effing up your taxes is that later on they come back to say, hey, you owe us a whole bunch more money than you thought you owed us, and now we would like that money, please. But even then, surprisingly enough, while they are awful, like while no one likes owing money to the government is a surprisingly chill creditor. They're like, yeah, just, get it to us sometime in the next 5 years. No biggie. Just show us, like, as long as you show that you are willing to pay them back and take steps to pay them back, they're not going to come like, they're not going to send Joey over to your house to like beat you up.
How you doing?
Yeah.
It's Joey Tribbiani.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I was thinking more of a guy like a Big Joey, Big Joey.
Big Joey. Joey Fatone. He's a big Joey in certain circles.
Have you ever been in a situation, Kyle, and I don't know, with, client privileges and whatnot, how much, if this has happened to you, that you would even be able to say, but have you been in a situation where you feel like someone is trying to get you to help them cheat or lie on their taxes?
Yeah. So the first rule, the first thing they teach. Well, actually, no. Not the first thing they teach you, but definitely part of what they teach you as being a tax preparer is this thing called ethics, professional ethics. And they make you like re-up that every year. And it's funny because it's part of the requirements of continuing to do it is every year you have to take a short ethics class where they explain to you, no, it really is a big deal not to help people cheat on their taxes and you shouldn't do it. But not like normal, not just because it's wrong, but also because you will also get in a lot of trouble if you help someone cheat on their taxes. So generally, if someone comes to me, this does not happen very often. Well, it comes to me a lot of the it happens all the time, once or, almost, every year that someone, it probably does happen where someone will be like, well, do I have to tell the IRS about this money that I made? Or can I just say that or can I guess about this or that or that? And then my job is absolutely to tell them, no, yes, you have to tell them about the money. No, you can't guess about what this number actually is. You have to go look it up. Or if you can't prove what it is, then you just can't take it. No, you can't. Here's the number one conversation I have. And you're going to think I'm joking, but it's absolutely true. Every year, multiple times, people ask me, can I claim my dog or my cat as a dependent on my tax return?
Oh, interesting.
They're my child. If I had a human child, I would be able to claim a deduction for them on my taxes. Can I please claim my pet as a deduction on my taxes? And they're joking, but they're not really. They're definitely kind of hoping that I'm going to be like, oh, did you not hear? Yes, that was Joe Biden actually came through.
Yeah, you wanted to deduct, or claim champ and major, so everybody else is allowed to do it too.
But anyway, so 99% of the time, people come to me with questions like, "Can I do this thing?" And the answer was, if you did that thing, it would be fraud. And when I tell them that, they're like, "Oh, well, I don't want to mess with that." And then if they, if they push me on it, then I have to be like, yeah, sorry, buddy, can't help you. Very rarely have I ever just been like, this conversation is over. Like there's basically a magic sentence that you can say to a tax preparer that will end the conversation very quickly, and it will be like it goes something along the lines of, "Oh, did I say I made $50,000? Actually, I meant I made $35,000." And if you say that to someone, they're like, all right, well, this has been fun, but have a good day. And so I have had a couple, but and they're not even like, the thing is, they don't get mad about it. They're usually pretty embarrassed because the second I'm like, okay, this isn't fun. Bye. They're like, oh, I obviously don't take this seriously. And then sometimes I will have cases, like in one very particular case, this doesn't happen a lot and it happens less often over time, because this is the whole reason you go to school more and more to do this stuff. But I had someone who wanted me to do something on a tax return, and I honestly couldn't figure out whether or not what they wanted to do was illegal. And that's not allowed. You aren't allowed to, like, I have to know that what I'm doing is right. The standard isn't I have to know 100%, but the standard is it's like more likely than not. Is basically the standard. It's not like beyond a reasonable doubt, but it is like, 4 out of judgment call. 4 out of 5 times I have to be pretty sure that 4 out of 5 times I would win this. So if someone comes to me and is like, I heard you can take this random land deduction, it's always real estate developers. Those are the craziest people. I mean, I believe that. When I heard believe that in a heartbeat. When I heard that, so nothing about, regardless of his politics, nothing about the way in which Donald Trump has been revealed to be a giant fraud on his taxes surprised me at all, because that's not even necessarily because he's a terrible person. That's just because he's a real estate developer, and they're all like that. So sometimes one time someone came to me and they were like, I want you to take this X deduction for this X transaction that I made. And I was just like, man, maybe you can find someone else who will do this for you. I'm not even saying that I know for a fact I'm not supposed to do this for you, but no way am I putting my name on something like this when I don't know what the hell you're doing. So please don't take this as an insult. Go find someone who specializes. Sometimes it's like being a doctor. It's like you need yourself a specialist. You need to find someone who is both very knowledgeable in this area and very comfortable, like getting into a knife fight with the Internal Revenue Service and the tax courts. And you can find that person and pay them to do this, but it's not going to be me.
I know in general, like you said, I'll clarify. I also use TurboTax to do my taxes. But, you do that, you put everything in, you get your little answer. Either you owe money or you're getting a refund back. And oftentimes that number is a surprise. I enjoy doing it, but I don't know taxes in and out. I don't do what you do for a living. But like as an in-person, like you're actually talking to people. Like I just got my computer and I could go, why? But how common is that? Like people are getting angry at you for the results of their taxes?
Very rarely. It very rarely happens because they in fact, it basically never happens because they trust that whatever I'm telling them must be true. Even sometimes when I make errors, they're usually not mad at me but then I have to sort of apologize, and that sucks.
Never a good feeling.
No, it's so what I do. So I should say this right now, your taxes, you can both breathe a sigh of relief. Your taxes are as easy as they are ever going to be. And I don't know what it is that you guys, I don't know exactly like what you guys have going on, but presumably, you go to work and you work your shift. And when you come home, you get your W-2, and plugging a W-2 into TurboTax is so easy that yes, anyone who wants to do that instead of paying me to do it is fine, provided that TurboTax will do it for free. I do always get mad if someone pays any amount of money to TurboTax that they could be paying to me. But as long as TurboTax offers free filing on a single W-2, I will not object to anyone wanting to take that pathway. Especially now that I think they've even they keep advertising that you can just take a picture of your W-2 and it will automatically do the whole tax return for you. I don't know. That sounds like technology that fails as often as it succeeds, but I like the idea of it.
I don't know. Just that there is so much of you could do that with. You're signing up for an app and just take a picture of your debit card. I'm like, I don't like this.
Right. Yeah.
I bet it could.
I could time
again,
it.
If the technology isn't there, it will be there soon. With AI and everything else, I could see just submitting your uploading your W-2 and then being like, this is the thing. There are two.
Can I go onto an AI generator and type W-2 for best tax return and see
that's an interesting
what it generates and then submit that.
That would be an interesting.
I would like
I'm sure there are people. I'm sure. In fact, I'm sure TurboTax. Intuit is the company that owns TurboTax. They're the same people who owns the tax software that I use, which is which is to TurboTax the NASA supercomputer is to the normal MacBook Pro. But it's still made by the same people. And I totally lost. Oh, okay. So there are two things. So first off, if all you have is a W-2, your taxes are so easy that it's pretty difficult for you to screw them up. So it's fine to do them yourself. There are two things that are problematic. The first is, as you get older, your finances become more complicated. So say you're investing money in, any one of a number of investment accounts, you're a stock fund, a pension fund, something like that. Eventually, maybe you sell some stock or you get some pension distributions. All of that stuff has tax consequences to it. And now trying to report that stuff on TurboTax is hard, particularly because, and this is the other thing about TurboTax, it's a black box system. Meaning if you don't understand how taxes work, there's no way to understand. Neither of you probably really have a very well, I'll just ask, do either of you really understand, Evan, who does this every year, do you actually understand what it is about the numbers that you put into TurboTax that makes the numbers that TurboTax spits out at the end what they are?
Fairly well, but not well enough, like right here.
Right, no,
if you're asking me
it's not a quiz.
To run down everything.
And it's not, this would become the most boring episode of this podcast ever if I actually explained how progressive tax rates work, so I won't do that to your audience. I'm just saying that it's a black box.
But yeah,
it's a black box process. You plug in the numbers, it asks you questions, and you answer them, and then it says, based on your answers, this is what we got for you. But there's no way to actually be like, if you have questions about like, wait, why is that the answer I got?
Right.
What would I have to change if I think I did something wrong? Like, what could I double check to make sure that I did something wrong? Like, who would explain this to me? That's when having a person sitting across the table from you is helpful. But also, it is just the case that, like I said, there's a lot of stuff where if your taxes were more complicated, you would not feel comfortable even answering the questions in the computer. So a common example that both of you might come across sooner or later is being self-employed. If either of you, go freelance and suddenly you start, or even if this podcast takes off so much that you're, doing huge Patreon numbers, then all of a sudden on you have to report those fees to the IRS, and you have to figure out like what's deductible and how do we allocate this income between us. We're two people working on this podcast. What's the taxable share of each of us for this thing? And all of a sudden, it is way beyond what TurboTax can do, and that's when you come to Papa Kyle to help you figure things out. So that's basically why I have a job. Is I deal with people, who have rental properties, who are self-employed, who own small corporations and things like that. These are all people who trying to do their taxes themselves would be somewhat irresponsible. And this is, not to go on a rant, but some people will argue.
I wonder who these people are.
Some people will argue that that's a sign that the tax code is too complicated, and that's probably fair. But whether or not, it's basically at a certain point you're not. Here's probably a shitty analogy, but the best one I got. For certain symptoms, it's okay to look up what's wrong with you on WebMD and go, oh yeah, that sounds right. And then for certain things, you have to go to the emergency or just you have to go see a doctor in person, right? And so what I do is I'm like the doctor in person. And again, exactly like just like a doctor in person would be annoyed if you came in and been like, I don't know, I had a cough for like 5 minutes and then it went away, but I thought I might come to you. You'd be like, this is a waste of both our times. I don't mind those people doing their own taxes, but yeah, at a certain point, I tell people, you have to go to someone.
Yeah. I mean, and that specifically is the example here where my girlfriend is self-employed. She runs her own graphic design business. So I'm like, I did my taxes real quick. And she's like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. You
have no idea.
You can still do your own taxes on TurboTax if you're self-employed, but it's so much harder. And then, then they start asking you questions that really get sort of that if you're not familiar with the tax code, all of a sudden you might asking questions like what's the size of your home office, or how many miles did you drive for work, and things like that. All of these things, there's a bit of judgment that goes into figuring out how to answer them. And frankly, I've seen very few people who are self-employed who do their own taxes on TurboTax who get them right. They just don't get them wrong enough that anybody cares. And that's that's not me saying like these people should all be afraid. It's probably fine because they're doing they're voluntarily reporting their income to the government, which is all they really ask for. But it is the case that most people, there are many, many people who think that they're doing their taxes correctly every year who are actually not.
I've got a question here. This is an awkward thing related to taxes because I've done great. I've done the freelance thing a little bit in my younger years, and remember other people you guys are screenwriters. I was working as a PA for a while on a couple television shows. and hopping around doing other like freelance editing and stuff like that. So money accumulates here and there. And there's the idea, just the kind of big gray area when you're running your own business, being yourself. What constitutes like something you would write off on your taxes and something you wouldn't? And people can get very like, well, I bought a pen. I bought a very nice pen, and I needed that pen for work, so that goes on the list. Or I bought an iPad, which I need, and that goes on the list. What's the
when they get a can of Coca-Cola out of the vending machine and they're like, that's a write-off because it gave me energy and I needed that to work.
Like, what's the sliding scale for how okay things are when you're freelancing like that?
So this is actually this is a surprisingly easy one to answer because the standard is very clear. The IRS or the Internal Revenue Code says that business expenses are deductible when they are ordinary and necessary to the operation of the business, which is still a little bit of judgment.
Ordinary.
But what they really mean by that is it's something that you need to do your job, and it's something that anybody else who does the specific job that you do would need to do their job.
It's not special to you because you like it this way.
Yes, it's basically so if you're I mean, you could even guess this. So say you're a carpenter, right? If you're a carpenter trying to do carpentry without a hammer and nails and a saw and a shitload of wood and a bunch of Home Depot receipts, yeah, it would be weird, right? You would expect
we'd have to be a miracle carpenter, and there's already been one of those in history.
Right. Yeah.
So what
do you think Jesus' taxes were like?
Well, he famously said, "Pay your taxes." He said it render unto Caesar what is due Caesar, but we know he meant just pay your taxes.
Get on it.
But no. So basically, what I tell people is use common sense. Don't try to be clever. And again, that's not true. What I tell my clients is write down every single dollar that came out of your account that you spent towards something and let me worry about it. And then just don't be upset when I tell you half this stuff isn't deductible, because that's what my job is to figure that stuff out for people. But if you're doing your own taxes, I say use common sense. Don't try to be clever. So tools that you need for work, supplies that you would normally expect someone else to pay you back for or to pay for if you were working for someone else and not yourself. All of that is the sort of stuff. The ones that get tricky, that people almost always get wrong, particularly here in LA, are stuff relating to personal health and wellness and stuff related to personal grooming. So we have a lot of actors here in LA, and as everybody knows, really not even just actors, as everyone knows, if you want to be successful in Los Angeles, you have to be a pretty person. It's just, if you're an ugly person, you are just screwed. All three of us will never work again.
Damn.
That's why we work in an audio only medium right now.
That's right. So
listeners, give us 5 stars and tell us that we're all pretty.
Yes,
tell us we're pretty boys.
I'm a pretty boy. So no, they will. People will come to me and be like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do my job if I can't go to the gym 5 times a week, and and gym memberships stack up. And also I had to get my hair done, and it's just, the IRS is very clear about that. None of that's anything that you do that makes you a happier, healthier, better person. All of that stuff is great. None of it is tax deductible. The one exception to that is, in the case of gym fees, I guess if you're a gym trainer, then it's a slightly different thing, right? Although if you're a gym trainer and the gym isn't comping you your fees, that's a really shitty gym.
That's a problem.
But also uniforms. If you're like, if you're wearing an outfit that you really would only wear in a work setting, that you would never try to wear on the street under any circumstances, that is basically a professional garb that you wear, then maybe clothing is deductible.
How about if I worked at Target? Can I deduct every red shirt I own?
No, because you can, unless the red shirt says Target on it and they make you pay for it.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
I feel anyways, it's not important. I don't need to get into how Target works. I've never worked there.
You mentioned, don't be clever. You called yourself Papa Kyle. I want to know, do you have a slogan to get people to choose you to do their taxes? You have a flashy ad campaign?
Oh, man. Did I?
Yeah.
So I do remember.
Better deductibles, better taxes, Papa Kyle. What do we think?
That's pretty good. I do remember, I think, Chris, you probably even saw this. So my current website just says Kyle Amann Tax Services, a modern, professional approach to taxes, which is obviously, yes, a cop out. But, I doubt you remember this, Chris, but you were definitely in my life at this point. When I first started my own tax business, I was doing all sorts of desperate marketing, which was mostly just bothering my friends to let me do their taxes. But I did other stuff too, including having printed shirts that said Kyle Amann Tax Services on them. And I was posting pictures of myself wearing them, and I was writing and all of that stuff I had to get rid of because it was way too like desperate used car salesman for like that. Like what happened is I got lucky and I was able to like find a business model that was stable and professional, but that basically requires me to look like an adult and not like some crazy Wild West cowboy tax preparer, which was, I think, the original vibe that I was hoping to go for when I first started working. So
that sounds fun.
No, I don't have any special slogan except, hey, so if someone has to do, usually what I tell people is, I mean, if you're going to pay someone to do your taxes, we're buddies, right? And then they're like, no, I can do it on TurboTax myself for free. And I'm like, God damn it. Fine.
How about tax prep isn't big enough for the two of us? So just let me do it. And then it's you in a cowboy hat.
That's absolutely, if I were going to take out a TV ad. Have you seen, this is totally not germane to anything we're talking about with taxes, but have you seen those billboards for Sweet James Law?
Oh yes.
Yes.
I mean,
Sweet James.
So many. Like he
has so many radio ads too. Like
Does
every
it?
morning radio show is like brought to you by Sweet James.
Oh, see, I never listened to those, but I just always think it's so great. We're so blessed to live in a city where there is a man out there performing legally, barred to perform law, whose name is Sweet James.
Attorney Sweet James Bergner, of course,
and is putting that on billboards and apparently morning radio shows. So maybe I could be Papa Kyle the way he's Sweet James.
I mean, you'd be breaking in like you don't see that a lot. That's such a lawyer thing, but break the mold. Get a billboard.
Yeah. Get like bench ads.
No. I learned
Sweet Kyle.
So this is where I can't get too specific without probably violating some rules. But I will just say I learned the hard way, like in my first couple of years up and coming, that the kind of people who come to your office because they found your like ad on like Yahoo listserv or we're just Googling, who lives within 20 blocks of me who does taxes, or like Yelp, any of those people. Like I took down my Yelp page because I did not want anyone from Yelp. So I respect the lawyers who take those kind of walk-in clients, but it's now usually these days it's like it's like the first question I ask is, who gave you my number? That should be my slogan.
How did you find me?
Kyle Amann Tax Services. Who gave you my number?
New client. Who did? Yeah. Is the best advice, as we semi start to wind down, we still got some time, but is the best advice, other than to pay you to do it, is the best advice to do your taxes as soon as possible, or to wait until the deadline?
It's actually so it depends. Basically, every person, depending on their situation, has a time to do their taxes that is optimal for them. But usually that depends on when you have your information together. So for people such as yourselves who just, if you're out there and you just got your W-2 and you know that that's the only thing that really affects your taxes this year. Although I should say both of you might have gotten the middle class tax refund from California, and that is taxable this year. So you gotta wait till you get the 1099 letting you know about that to report that on your taxes. But that sort of thing you can probably do in late January, February. Claim your refund, get out of the way, stop thinking about it. If you're someone who has we'll just say if your life is more complicated and you have more stuff going on, then there are probably tax forms coming your way that won't even get to you until the middle or the end of February. And so obviously those people should not feel bad about not doing their taxes until March. And for that matter, I would say you shouldn't really feel bad about going on extension. You should just understand, should I explain to the listeners what extension is, or should we just let them posit that there's this magical thing called going on extension? We'll do that. All right. So you shouldn't
extending the deadline, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't even feel bad if you're late filing.
Is that what extends is?
Yeah.
Yes.
You shouldn't feel bad.
That's what I like to call my deadline.
You shouldn't. I'm just pausing because
that's
Chris
so dumb.
You shouldn't feel bad about filing your taxes late as long as you're taking reasonable steps to do it. I can't tell you, and just keep at it. That's the thing that strangely happens to people that I see a lot. Mostly, I would be the one who sees it the most, but is people will not pay their taxes for a particular year, and then nothing will happen to them immediately, within the immediate time frame that they expect. I think people think that if they don't pay their taxes, someone is going to show up on their doorstep within a year and be like, "Hey, buddy, what gives?" And a lot of the times, that's not how it works. So I will have people who will come to me and they will say I didn't pay my taxes for the last 3 years, and then that's my job to clean up for them. And basically what I say is don't be that person, because it is the case that eventually it's just the IRS is a big, slow organization. And again, they won't throw you in jail, but eventually you're going to have to file your taxes. So just the fact that you didn't file them right away and nothing bad happened, or nobody came and gave you an F on the assignment for being late, doesn't mean that it's still not due. Your taxes are always, that would be basically my main takeaway. Your taxes are always due. And any money that you make is taxable, even if it's in Bitcoin. So in fact, a lot of times, Bitcoin transactions are taxable whether or not you made any physical money on the transaction. So be careful with that stuff.
I want to jump back real quick to taxes and stuff in the media. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Was that accurate?
Oh yeah, that was pretty. So can I tell you the funny story about Everything Everywhere All at Once is I think that movie came to theaters on April 19th or 20th of last year. Because I remember... God,
I didn't even think about that.
I remember
tax
I remember
That's hysterical.
It was the day after tax season, and I was still in my office because the day after tax season you're still catching up on stuff. So I was like, okay, well, I'm starting to feel caught up. I got to get out of here. I just don't want to, I've been doing taxes for 200 hours straight. I just don't want to think about this anymore. I want to go see this cool new movie that everybody's talking about, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And the second I walk into the theater, I'm like, God, it's still a great movie, but I was like, God damn it.
Just immediately brings you into a tax office.
No, but I will say what I like about that is I don't know how realistic that particular portrayal is anymore, mostly in the sense that the IRS is so underfunded that they don't have a lot of resources to devote to getting people to come into offices and do stuff. So the level of involvement that Jamie Lee Curtis has in their lives strikes me as something that could be true in some cases, but is increasingly rare. It used to be a lot more likely than it is now. just because the IRS used to have more resources and more funding than it currently does. But I will say this, the fact that I really like about that movie is that she's not, well, she is scary when she's possessed by the apocalyptic monster entity that has turned her into an agent of destruction. But normally when you get to peek what she's like in her normal life, she's not a bad person. She's a frustrated, overworked person, but she's actually quite helpful to them. She just wants to figure out like what are the correct steps here and how do we get to the bottom of this. And there are several times in the course of that film, and this is probably the most realistic thing, where she's like, I told you to get me this information. They're like, oh, we're sorry, we didn't get that information together yet. Is there any way we can do it tomorrow? And she's like, yeah, sure, fuck it, whatever. Just please don't do this to me again. It's starting to get on my nerves. And that is actually the IRS. So speaking of media portrayal, the IRS is usually portrayed as like evil, sadistic people, but that is much more accurate. Is they're generally just put upon bureaucrats who want you out of the way. Because they got 10 billion people but they don't have anything against you. They're just like trying to basically help you do something that they were hoping you could figure out yourself, but for some reason that hasn't happened.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. You want to get that part of your job done and then ship it off, and when there's a human being stopping you from just getting that thing done, I could see that being frustrating.
And I don't think this character was really taxes, but how similar is your life to Ben Affleck's character in The Accountant?
Well, yes, that movie does start out with him helping an elderly couple take a larger home office deduction to avoid having to parcel off a portion of their land to satisfy their tax liability. And that
so very accurate.
So that was actually pretty accurate. And then I actually, fun fact, I have a black belt in Krav Maga, so I don't know that there are many other accountants who are experts in hand-to-hand combat, but I actually found that part pretty relatable too. I
remember that he had like a one of a kind painting in like his trailer or whatever. It's like the big part that I remember.
Yes, because he's been helping the mob. He's been doing the books for the mob. And would
you ever do the books for the mob, Kyle?
No, that would. Well, I'm not sure how much of I'm not sure how much of a choice they give you. That's always my nightmare.
That's a great point.
That's always my nightmare is that some big Italian guys show up and are like, "We heard you're really good at maximizing."
We're looking for Papa Kyle.
Yeah, that's basically the plot of Better Call Saul. So
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's when it gets really bad. So I would not do taxes for the mob, but he's secretly working against the mob the whole time. But because he's involved in illegal accounting practices, they're paying him in non-liquid assets that are hard to trace, and stolen art is famously good for that. And it's interesting, right? They could have they could have had him paid in Bitcoin, but then, can you imagine the end of that movie? He's telling Anna Kendrick to go pursue her dreams, and he leaves her a note like, if you open this flash drive and you put in this password, and then you go on buyfinance.us.
I left you so many Dogecoin.
Yes.
Take your dreams to the moon.
I hear you're an art major, so I got you this NFT, which is so much more valuable than any actual art will ever be.
Weird world.
Anna Kendrick, I want you to take my apes.
Yes. You can continue to ask me questions wherever, but this will be my final advice for getting your taxes done, which is if you do work with the tax professional, and you're going back to that question about when should I get my stuff to my tax professional, just know that there is only like one wrong day, and that's like April 14th. If you come to your tax preparer on April 14th, he may still do your taxes, but he hates you. If you sense that they're people too, and if you sense frustration and anger, and you think you see rage in your tax preparer's eyes because you are coming to them like the day before the tax deadline with all of your stuff, and this is the first time you've spoken to them that year, that is probably true. They probably do actually. They are fantasizing about killing you in that moment. And also, the single worst thing that you can do is submit all your stuff let them file your taxes, and then go, oh wait, I found this one document that I've forgotten about. So that is, I mean, that's just, maybe that shouldn't annoy me as much as it does, but it happens way too often, and it is the single number one thing that drives me crazy. So
that does make me, because you mentioned, like tax preparers and whatever, you end up in this kind of the image of the bureaucrat just driven over sort of situation. But are there good people out there that appreciate you and like give you a little gift? Are you allowed to take gifts for preparing taxes? Like if someone just like a edible arrangement?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's like I'm because I'm not a government official, so it's like I have no power. I'm basically performing a service for people. So yeah, people get me like, they send me like gift boxes or chocolate or
one of a
wine.
kind artwork.
No, I've never gotten good. Well, actually, I have. I did have a client who was trying to get me really big into NFTs sometime. But I was like, cash is fine. Cash is totally. A check is great. Something I can take to my bank and deposit.
Yes.
But I appreciate that you are all in, totally have invested all of your savings in this process. I'm sure that's a financially sound decision that you won't regret later.
I know we were talking about branding you having a not like in a Western movie, like giving you
back to that Wild West.
We were talking before you came on. We were talking about branding you with the How Do We Human logo. But I'm like, hey,
we do it to all our guests
from an SEO perspective. You want to get yourself higher up on that list. You're going to change your brand to Turbo Kyle.
Turbo Kyle.
You can come up right under TurboTax. Maybe outdo them one day. Who knows? Everyone's using Turbo Kyle.
I mean, again, I played around. You're joking, but I played around with stuff like that because this is totally true. When I first started doing people's taxes, I didn't have an office, so my shtick was that if you want, it doesn't have to be like this, but if you want, I will come to your house and do your taxes in your living room, which I did for some people.
I'm sure.
And so like I was looking up stuff like TaxGo or TaxVan, things like that were all like, yeah. I had a van at the time. I thought about like spray painting a logo on the side of it and stuff. But again, thank God none of that ended up being necessary, because I think that road. You want to talk about all of my craziest stories are from that period in my career, including, so here's this person is both no longer my client, and this isn't really related to any specific tax thing, but I once had a client, I was sitting in their living room, her and her husband, and he got up to leave, and she goes, so just random question, if I were to theoretically get a divorce in the next year, would that change anything about my taxes?
Oh, that's good. That's good stuff.
Turbo Kyle is pretty good, but Evan, if you ever decide to do people's taxes, Turbo Cox is that's pretty good.
Turbo Cox.
You might have to buy that domain from someone, but
not just Cox Tax.
Yeah.
A surprising number of them are taken. You'd be amazed. And then sometimes like www.coxtax.com is a San Diego accountancy corporation.
Damn.
Cox Taxation and Accountancy Corp. So there, I guess I just gave them all of my business. But
I'm afraid to go to turbocox.com, but I'm sure it's taken.
And sometimes you regret this. So like my domain for my website is .tax. I don't know if you know this, but .tax is a domain that you can have.
I didn't know that.
And I regret that so much. That is like, if there's
it's harder
one thing,
to find.
Yeah, it's just, and it's annoying to have to spell to people. Like when you're giving them your website or your address, it's so annoying to have to, and also I'm not going to do it now, but like my last name is it's not like, it doesn't sound weird, but when you're trying to spell it, it's hard to guess like from how it sounds, how you spell it. And that's also like in all of my emails and stuff. And if like there's one thing that I could change, it would be like all of my emails and websites would be just my first name and something@something.com.
Yeah.
But it's too late now. I printed too many fucking business cards. I'm stuck like this until the day I die.
If anyone was curious, turbocox.com, not a website. It is available, although it did ask me if I meant roblox.com. No. So I'm going to take turbocox.com. I'll do something with it. I don't know what it is.
Sounds good.
That's my plug. Are we done here?
I think so.
It's time to kind of wind all these
down
things. What did we learned stuff? Am I supposed to say the other stuff first? I forget.
Yeah,
but that's fine.
Not necessarily first, but you're supposed.
But we
to
learned
say
stuff. We learned all about don't pop in on the last day. Don't pop in on the last day and upset your tax people. They'll hate you. And you don't want to be hated. You'll deserve it.
You'll earn it.
You'll earn it. We learned turbocox.com is available.
Yeah, big lesson from today.
A big lesson. Anything else? I'm forgetting.
We learned a lot of stuff.
We learned a lot.
If you weren't paying attention for the last hour, that's on you.
There was a lot of good info here.
Yeah, that no way is that a failure of us as like entertainers or podcasters. If we were talking and you suddenly found your brain zoning out and thinking about how much more fun it would be to be listening to anything else, that's your personal fault. As an idiot. You're just a bad human being.
That's right. You hear that? If you like being insulted by us, being called a bad human being, you can listen to more of this. We'll do it again. And that's a promise. The podcast is called How Do We Human. You can find us anywhere you look, but specifically look at places that stream podcasts. You're gonna get a lot more hits that way. Find us on Spotify, find us on Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music, etc., etc. Podbean, Daddy Podbean. You can also find and hey, when you go there, leave us a rating, leave us a review. We love this stuff. We can't get enough of this stuff. You can also find us on the old social media. We're on Instagram at How Do We Human.
We got that handle.
We're half on Twitter at How Do We Human Pod.
We tweet those tweets.
Where are we? Where are we? YouTube. We got that handle. We got the handle at How Do We Human.
Gotta get that handle.
Facebook. That's what I forgot. You can find us on Facebook at How Do We Human.
I don't think you're ready for that handle. I know that's the problem. Is it doesn't alternate anymore. You got to double up on that. We
gotta axe Twitter, and then we're back clean to 3. But then you can also send us an email, and we'd love it if you did. You can email us at howdowehumanpod@gmail.com.
The best part of that handle is that it's an email.
Boo! Whoop. Good job.
Thanks. Kyle, what would you like to plug?
Yeah, so I also have again, it was mentioned at the beginning, but I have a podcast with my buddy Nick, which Chris has actually guested on a couple of times, called The Big Bang Theory, which is exactly what it sounds like. A podcast about the Big Bang Theory, except it's not, because you would think that a podcast about the Big Bang Theory would be made by two people who really like the show. And for whatever reason that even I cannot explain, we picked that despite the fact that we don't like the show very much. And oftentimes the episodes are an exercise in us seeing how quickly we can get done with talking about the show before we talk about whatever it is we actually want to talk about, and usually evolve into nerdy geek ephemera revolving around video games or anime or whatever else is really we're really caring about that week. But it is still ostensibly a show about the Big Bang Theory, and we at least give a passing summary of an episode every single week, and we're now on season 6, which should tell you how long we've been doing it.
Wow.
How many seasons are there total?
12.
Wow.
Ooh, all right. Getting across the halfway point.
Yeah, we've been doing it. We only record bi-weekly, so you guys have quickly overtaken us, despite the fact that I think we started our podcast a little bit earlier than you. But doing bi-weekly, we've still been doing it I think 4 years now, and we're still only halfway through the show.
Wow.
I know you don't have the analytics in front of you, but I'm assuming the 2 episodes that I guested on are the most popular episodes of
absolutely.
your podcast.
Seems likely.
No, of course they are. Yeah, who could doubt it? It actually, I think the episode that is the one where for some reason we put a blowjob joke in the title of the episode that tends to work pretty well. If you ever have that.
We haven't tried that yet.
No, we haven't.
Maybe next week.
Yeah. Turbo Cox.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.